We're back! Happy 2019, everybody. It's been a wonderful break. We had a great time off, but we are ready to get back in the saddle here with a new show, new look, new graphics, and a new lineup of guests. So I hope you're ready for 2019. That's going to be exciting and fun. Welcome to Wirecast Live. This episode is going to be fantastic. We're going to talk about all the upcoming tips and trends for 2019 with one of the best streamers around, Mr. Jeff Sia. So it should be a really fun episode. Jeff and I are going to have a great conversation. We've got some predictions, some things we'll be talking about. Buckle your seatbelts, relax, maybe pour yourself a cup of tea, and settle in for a great episode of Wirecast Live. I'm so glad to see you again. We'll see you just after these opening credits. Hey everybody, welcome back to 2019, our Wirecast Live episode, the first episode of our series this year. And I want to say a quick shout out to everyone who's joining us back here. I see Ian's on. Welcome, Ian. Glad to see you there, as always. Mr. Greg Cooner is joining us from Australia. Hey, Greg. Let's see if I can get your comments up here, if I've got those on playlist here. I'm going to try to pull that live. There we go. And this comment was from Ian last episode, I think. I pulled this one from our holiday episode. So, of course, Jeff Sia is great. If you guys don't know our guest today, Jeff Sia, let me briefly tell you about him, and then we'll kind of jump into it. We don't have any news items today. We don't have any major announcements. We're just going to kind of jump into the topic for today, and we're going to start talking, about our 2019 tips and predictions. So I'll introduce Jeff in just a moment, and you'll learn more about him and his story, and I'll actually let him kind of explain sort of how he got into live streaming, what he does every week, and how that's going. But in the meantime, if you're a new viewer, we want to welcome you and say thanks for tuning in. So if you're watching this on demand on YouTube or on Facebook, please check out our other episodes or subscribe to our email list where we will notify you of our upcoming shows and our upcoming guests. So we have some great guests lined up. We have some cool new graphics for this now. So you can sign up at telestream.net/wirecastlive. And it's just a simple email address. We won't spam you, and we will just send out the content and announcements around the show. So it's a great way to stay notified. Of course, the other ways to get notified are to follow us on social media and sign up for those live notifications on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We haven't been streaming to Twitter too often or recently. We may or may not bring that back. I'm not sure yet. We'll talk more about that. But I just want to say, that's the way you can follow us. If you haven't already signed up, please do, and we'd love to have you as part of our show's regular audience. All right, with that said, let's talk about our guest for today. So Mr. Jeff Sia is a member of the Social Media Examiner team, and he is best known for being the sort of head beard and founder of manlypinteresttips.com. So he has one of the greatest beards in the live streaming industry, which you'll see soon if you haven't seen it already. And he has sort of made a name for himself through live streaming and through really, really helpful sort of tips around Pinterest. He's a Pinterest expert. I'd love to pick his brain about that today on the show a little bit, maybe particularly around video and what's coming to Pinterest there. But he also streams regularly, anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week, either with the Social Media Examiner team, with Michael Stelzner and the podcast they make there. We've had Michael on the show, which is great. And he is an expert in his field. And you can see him all over the place on all kinds of live streams every week. And he's a great guy to talk about 2019 and what's coming up in the live streaming and video industry and marketing in particular, because this is all he's been doing for the last few weeks. So we're glad to have him joining us live from his home in Texas. So Jeff, are you there?
Thank you. And I'm a big fan of you and the Wirecast. We got to meet face to face last year at Social Media Marketing World, and that was a a lot of fun. So
That
I'm
was a
excited
lot
to
of fun.
talk all about 2019.
Yeah, we've been we actually had you booked on the show for last year, and I'm really
Right.
excited to that we kind of had to reschedule on you, which was probably my fault, and then things timing didn't work out. But the you're kind of kicking off the 2019 season for us as our first
Awesome.
guest, so I couldn't be happier to have you with us because I've been wanting to sit down with you and pick your brain, and this is I find that live streaming is a really good opportunity to have conversations I might not otherwise have the time to have. Like if you and I were trying to have this conversation at Social Media Marketing World, maybe we wouldn't be able to get as in depth about any of this.
Right. We'd be going crazy trying to put out fires, usually, is what happens.
Exactly. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about, manly Pinterest tips and kind of give our viewers a little bit of a background on who you are and how you came to sort of begin live streaming.
Yeah, so I've had a digital marketing agency here in Longview, Texas since about 2012, I think. And I started doing social media because I was telling all my clients that they needed to be in it. And so I need to kind of start doing what I was telling them to do. And so I started blogging and doing all this stuff. And one week I was driving somewhere and I was listening to this podcast, and it was actually Michael Stelzner's social media marketing podcast. And he had this lady on named Cynthia Sanchez who had a podcast called Oh So Pinteresting. And she was talking about how Pinterest actually drove all this traffic to her blog. And I'm like, hey, I have a new blog. I need to try this out. So I started using Pinterest. And then I wrote this article called, Manly Pinterest Tips #1. And it was how to create a group board. And I was doing it with my daughter. She was really young, and she was giving me things to cook and crafts she wanted to make. And we were sharing that, and only her and I could put stuff on there. And I wrote an article about it. Well, it really took off. And then this was the time when Google Hangouts were really taking off. And so these guys said, hey, you ought to do a show about this. And I said, okay. And I got 4 other guys who had tons more followers than I did. And we just started doing this show, and we were able to interview people like Guy Kawasaki. We had the producer of Pretty Woman and Under Siege on. I mean, so it opened up all these opportunities to talk to people about business and visual marketing, and it all happened with live stream. And so that led to me being, having a podcast, and then that led to me being on social media examiners podcast, and then being invited to their conference and teach and train over there, and then actually being hired and running a lot of their live video streams for social media examiners, while being on the shows and running their Instagram and some of their other accounts. And I mean, it's been quite a ride, and it kind of really all started with Pinterest and doing that little Google Plus live video show back in the day.
That's amazing. So when did you come on board exactly with the Social Media Examiner team?
So I've been with them, I believe it's 4 years. So I've been with them for quite a while. I'll be speaking for the 4th time this year in March for their Social Media Marketing World 19. So yeah, so right before I joined them, to be a contractor, was about 4 years ago.
Cool. Okay. Well, I have a couple comments from the crowd here that I'd like to bring on screen. So, Deborah Lee, if you could bring these comments on. The first is Ian was mentioning that. Let's see if I can bring this on. There we go. Hold on. Ian's mentioning, what about streaming to Twitch? That's a great question. Haven't even thought about it yet, but I understand many people are bringing in, Twitch as part of their live streaming strategy. So, Jeff, what is your thoughts on this? Do you think everyone, if you are simulcasting, or whether you're doing more than one platform at the same time, or if you do multiple platforms throughout the week to kind of reach different audiences or different types of content, do you think Twitch should be part of any live streamer's strategy?
It just depends, and you're going to have to test it. So I'm a big fan of Dave Foster and Luria Petrucci, and they were doing a lot of stuff on Twitch, and I really liked how Twitch gamified the system. Like, you could buy bits, and people could do things, and it would make things happen on screen. And so it's a really great way to build a community. And Twitch is mostly, and it started for gamers, and they're trying to kind of go outside of that a little bit now. I don't know about simulcasting there, just because of the wrangling comments. Comments are huge when you're trying to build engagement with people on live video. In fact, I tell people not to use any software or do anything where they can't bring comments up on the screen, because it's that important. People love to see themselves and their questions and their avatar come up, just like Ian's came up right there. We've actually, when we've done streams before on Social Media Examiner, we've answered somebody's question. We brought their question up on screen. Well, we found out that they have screen capped it and taken over and posted it to Instagram and said, "Hey, social media answered this question. You should go watch this show." So, I mean, it's that important for people. So, yeah, very important.
I agree. I think this comment, the ability to bring on comments is super critical. And let's talk about that for just a second, because this comes into one of our predictions in the trends for 2019, which is the interactivity. So first, the ability to do stuff like this, like Crystal's comment here. And I know it says actually Facebook. It's got the Facebook symbol on there, but this is actually from YouTube. So I can take that off there. But Crystal was, for example, saying, "Oh, I missed the link for the Facebook group. Like, what was that?" So we could either enter that into the chat here on YouTube for her to answer it, or we can answer it directly online. And Crystal, you can go to telestream.net/Wirecast Live, which is the email list. And then we have a group called Wirecast Users. Wirecast Users, you can just type that in to Facebook and you'll find a Wirecast Users group. So those are two great ways to get involved with our community. But all that's possible because I have this handy app on my desktop, which I can show real fast here. But I can basically wrangle comments as we're going here. It's basically just a Chrome web browser here on my desktop. And what I can do is I've added here on the left, this is all through New Blue Tyler Live, which comes free with Wirecast. And I can jump in back and forth between YouTube and Facebook. And then what I do is if I can choose to refresh or get comments every so often, right? So once I get the comments, it'll refresh the latest ones, and I can do the same thing here on YouTube, get comments every 30 seconds, and that'll refresh. And then the ones that I want to answer or that I'd like to add, I just click the plus button here. I just open a playlist here on the right, and I've got a list of ones I can push live. And then if I just hit the sort of red arrow, that one goes live. So Greg here is saying he likes to use this one every time he goes live. So it's a great aggregator for Wirecast. That super great tool. They've done so much to refine this, and I'm really, really liking it. So it's now been a critical part of our show, and it will be moving forward.
And I think that one of the comments that Ian said about, the fragmentation of comments is a big deal when you're simulcasting, and that's been a big, we've had to deal with that with the social media team because we've gone over for Social Media Examiner because we go live to YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook at the same time, and we have a team that we're able to, like, somebody's over there on Facebook and they'll drag it over and let us see it, and we're able to sometimes pull it up. But the demonstration you just gave is huge, and that's been something that I know live streamers have been wanting for a long time, is to be able to pull those in and have them come up on screen, because you don't want to. And that goes back to your question about Twitch. There's not really a good way that I know of right now to grab those Twitch comments and put them in there. And so any platform where I have to leave somebody just kind of hanging, where I'm not answering their comments and I have to go back later and it doesn't feel like they're a part of the show, I tend to try not to do that. So this kind of software and being able to bring stuff together is huge.
Yeah, completely agree. And so the make sure that wherever you're going live, you have the ability to see those comments. There's a number of different ways you can do that. If you have questions about that, I'm sure Jeff or I can help you answer that. Okay, so Jeff, let's get into the comment, kind of use that as a jumping off point for the sort of trends and predictions. Now, with interactivity obviously being one of the major advantages of live streaming, that you can directly have a conversation with your audience, answer questions. You mentioned it's a big deal for people who view the Social Media Examiner show. They screenshot their comments, and it's just a great way to kind of give a shout out to your viewers. You get that little. I've done it myself. When I leave a comment, I'm like, "Ooh, answer my comment, answer my comment, answer my question."
Right.
They take it, and I'm like, "Yes!" So it's a great. Just even as a viewer, I've been super tickled whenever the viewers will acknowledge or answer a question. I
was going to say that's one of the things that you should be. You can use. We talk about trying to keep people on our stream, especially like on YouTube, where it's super important, and even on Facebook. Is if they know that you're going to answer questions at the end of the show, they will stick around. If you have if people have watched your show long enough and they see that I know at the end they're going to take a bunch of questions, and I could be one of those, I'm going to stick around. And so that's one of the big things, kind of when you're being strategic about your live video. You want, okay, I'm going to answer some questions up front, and then I'm going to wait a while and make sure that they know I'm going to answer them in the end, and keep that in your format of your show, because that will keep people sticking around longer.
Yeah, definitely. And then I would argue, even if you want to be super scientific about it, I think when they did the sort of the Pavlovian training on animals,
Right.
and they decided that what was the most effective way to get somebody to expect a reward at a certain time was to never have a specific schedule for it. You sort of
Right.
they randomized it
Drip it
so
in.
that
Yeah.
when they hit so the rats would keep hitting the button or whatever, and if it was
That's a great point.
random, then they would actually get it much longer. So yeah, if you want to
Right.
be really sort of scientific about it, answering questions sporadically can be another helpful strategy. So people aren't so at any given time in the show you could bring them in, which I have to say is just my approach, just because I'm less organized anyway. So
Right. Yeah. Either. I mean, you're right, because if as long, I guess the point is, as long as they know you are answering questions, and that you're not going to answer the same person every time,
right.
but it's actually a service there. I think that's what makes a huge difference.
Yeah, could totally agree. So what trends or predictions do you have around interactivity, like comments, for 2019?
Well, I've seen a lot of people using already the interactivity and being able to go into like private Facebook groups and really dig in, and it's almost like nothing else. I mean, it's back in the day when you had when everybody would kind of conference call in, you could kind of do a mastermind or something with a conference call. But now you have all these people who can join in live. You can answer questions. You can pull them up on screen. You can take time. You're not really trying to get done with the show or something. You can just say, hey, I'm going to be live. We do this actually in Social Media Examiner's private group that they have, their paid group, where we actually, we call it office hours. And the social media team is in there, and we answer questions that people have either in the forums, in the private forums, or come with us live during the show, and we try to answer them. And we have such I'm kind of the visual marketing guy. We have a Facebook ads expert, and we have, our social media manager. And so through all those people, we can answer those questions. But I see more and more people doing that really powerfully in groups, and being able to really energize the free and the paid Facebook groups that are going on right now.
That's cool. Okay, so you gave me an example of sort of what you saw as sort of a good use of this type of interactivity and technology from an actual stream you guys did, or you were part of today, at Agora Pulse on their Facebook page. So why don't I pull that up here on my desktop, and we'll just I'll keep the volume low, but this is a sort of a kickoff live stream you guys did for Social Media Lab live pre-launch party. And here's Owen. He's been on our show before. He's great, super great host, and I love what's going on screen here. There's the way visually everything's arranged. They've got clearly a wonderful background that's been designed so that they've got the brand. They can bring on they've got the chat bot here, so they've integrated this is something I think Owen does on his show, is he integrates a chat with the lower thirds. So he'll do a call to action on the title cards, like type 5 into the comments, and then you get automatically subscribed to certain things, which is, I think, another way to increase interactivity. Now, not only are you bringing on lower thirds or comments or whatever, but actually by typing in certain responses into the especially on Facebook, people can bring about certain automated interactions. And so do you think that is will continue more and more interactivity and automation through chat comments?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think we're just scratching the surface. I was really hesitant with Messenger chatbots, because that was kind of like, I don't want it to be marketed to in the chatbot. But a lot of people pointed out that email is kind of, we're so inundated with email. This is a way to really kind of to break through some of the clutter. And if people are asking to subscribe to your show, which I think it's great. You pointed out a great point that it's another way to be interactive during a live stream. And so, like on this example, it was like type 5 and you'll be subscribed to, when we go live, you'll be notified. I've seen ones where they've actually, here, if you want to have this free resource, here's all my tips of all my live streaming gear. Just type in gear and you will get that free PDF as a gift from us. And then you can actually do an opt-in with that. So there's some really cool things I think live streamers can use these chatbots for. you want to be really careful. You want to make sure you have permission, and you want to make sure that you're really, not spamming people. Like every time you go live, you get a notification if they didn't want that. So there's a slippery slope, but if people really want your content, this is another way where it won't get lost in Facebook. Because we've even noticed on Social Media Examiner, we did kind of a training for people where like, hey, if you want to see our live show, make sure to click on see first. Well, we did a kind of another poll later on before the end of the last year. And even though people said see first, they weren't seeing us when we went live. Mm-hmm. So Facebook's always tweaking that algorithm, and the different ways you can figure out how to break through and get right into people's inbox that really want your content, that are your super fans. The easier way you can have that kind of have no friction, I think the better off you'll be in the long run.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And this actually goes back to the point that maybe a platform focus per show is actually a good strategy, because there's a lot of advantages to taking, and Facebook, is including these tools so that your broadcast kind of, all those features, interactivity things really only happen there for the viewers there. So for the people watching on YouTube right now, you wouldn't get the advantage of the Facebook chat bot unless we could figure out a way to sort of hook that into the YouTube chat as well, which might be a very different experience. And I think those will continue to sort of pull apart a little bit. I think there will be, tools like, the Tyler Live that are going to continue to try to aggregate for you, but it gets really challenging when you want to have a very specific call to action, like type 5 or interact with this bot, and the bot experience is very different or non-existent on platforms you might be on at the same time. So that kind of specialization can be, I think, a super good advantage. So let's see, a couple other things. Well, I think that prediction here around 2019 around interactivity is that Facebook's going to continue to iterate on this stuff. And I think you mentioned, or if you didn't, it certainly was in this live stream, the polls and polling features. So are you starting to introduce polls in just every live stream as kind of a baseline?
We haven't yet. I know you can do that live with some of the Facebook stuff. We still, I think it's great. I think, companies like Wirecast and some of the other ones who are on the cutting edge and giving live streamers the tools they need quicker than Facebook does. I think that's going to be a trend. I think that nothing's going to stop there. I think Facebook's going to try to be giving us more features for the people who just want to go live on their phone or just want to click go live on their browser. And I think that's fine. And I think a lot of businesses are going to be able to do that. There's no reason why they couldn't do that, like we mentioned groups before, or even going live with their page. There's nothing wrong with doing that if you can get interactivity. But for us kind of live streaming nerds and geeks that really like to put on a show and be able to bring on some of this stuff and have music and lower thirds and all that stuff, I think Facebook's they're going to try to give you some of that stuff, but in the past, they're going to such a wide market, they're not going to be able to hit everybody. It's not going to come as quick as we need it as professional live streamers. So I think there's going to be a place for some of those new things, but I think for businesses who really want and see the value of live streaming and seeing how you can talk directly with your customers and do these interactive things and build a community, which is one of the reasons a lot of people do live video, I think tools like Wirecast and others that can, do all these cool things, and like the Blue Tyler you were showing off earlier. I mean, that's huge. I was drilling over that. It's like, we got to figure that out, because that's just being able to pull those comments in and interact with people throughout your networks is huge.
Yeah. I think the aggregation's key, and so that's a big deal. I love the fact that this also adds Twitter. So if people want to go with hashtags, it's really easy to sort comments through a hashtag around a trending topic. Maybe you guys you guys are news shows, so a lot of news breaks on Twitter, and and I think that the ability to quickly search by a trending hashtag to bring in relevant comments or observations from different Twitter feeds is really useful. And so in addition to also kind of adding that into the comments that the viewers of your audience are also leaving, if you can sort of merge all that into a single tool, that just saves you time, and it kind of consolidates the look and feel of the way the show works. So you mentioned that, Facebook's going to continue to kind of add these production type features maybe to the web browser, to the Facebook Live Create tool, and that's going to be good, but they're never going to have the horsepower that a dedicated solution like Wirecast is going to have, and that's kind of our job, is to make sure that there's a reason you download and install Wirecast on your system, because there's just so many advantages that's going to give you. But there is a tool that I know a lot of live streamers like to use these days that does give you some production power, and is pretty commonly used in Facebook streams. So Be Live is one of the ones that I think maybe even the one that they might have been using for the stream here today. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you see as the advantages around that, and sort of how where it hits the stopping point and when you'd want to go to something like Wirecast, or if you can, I've done a demo video on how you can actually feed your Wirecast content into Be Live and still use Be Live if you want to use that for some of the comments and things like that. But what's your experience so far with that tool or a browser-based production like that?
So we've pretty much tested all of them at Social Media Examiner, and so and sometimes for going live real quick and with somebody, onboarding is always big when you're trying to get on people who've never been on live before, and we interview a lot of guests. So you kind of have to balance that and how much tech you want to set up. But when you mention web-based, there are some limitations with web-based, because you don't have a dedicated computer and you don't, like you said, the horsepower isn't there to run it. For most people, I think it could be a great solution. So you're just going to have to weigh the pros and cons. You're limited on the design. I mean, with Wirecast, you're pretty much whatever you can imagine, and you could probably put on screen. I mean, there's usually some of the ways to do it. It's a lot more flexible. With that flexibility comes a little bit of a learning curve, and so that's kind of the trade-off you have. So I think there's a place in the market for both of them. Well, I know there are, because we use all of them.
Right.
But I think anything that gets people comfortable using being in front of a camera and going live is a good thing, because I think a lot of people start with just going with their phone, and that's how they start. And then they kind of maybe graduate to a web-based tool, which is great. They may use that for a year, 2 years. But then they go, okay, I've got an audience. I've got this thing. I want to do some cool things like those polls we were doing. And that wasn't Be Live that they were using for that.
Got it.
Yeah, so, but they wanted to have polls. They wanted to have multiple screens where they could do that kind of stuff. And so then they may want to go to a professionally, and I would consider Wirecast and some of the others, professional live streaming software. And it's just kind of a different levels that you go through when you're a live streamer. At least that's what happened with me.
Fair enough, and I think that that's a common step, is that you may start on your phone, and then as you try and want to do more things, you're going to expand, and maybe then the next step is the browser based, and then the next step is a dedicated software on your system to do more and more. It really is what if the tool matches your imagination. So let's come back to other sort of tips and predictions. Viluoto, I'm not sure how to phonetically pronounce your name, so I apologize if I'm messing that up. But he's saying, what new trends in live features will we see in 2019? So do you think that there's going to be new announcements around live streaming features that maybe have been highly requested or maybe speculated about, but nothing that is out there at the moment? What's sort of missing right now?
I think the biggest thing, at least for me, is the ability to use live video on Instagram Live using third-party tools, because you just have to use your phone. And so, like, I use AirPods when we try to go live on there, and they'll just quit in the middle of things. And I mean, so it's not ideal. And so I would love to be able to take a Wirecast and go straight over to Instagram Live. And I don't understand why not, because I know it's owned by Facebook. Maybe there's some things that anyway, hopefully this year they'll do some things. I do think they need to do some sort of reboot with IGTV. I don't think it's what they want it to be right now. So if you could actually go live to Instagram, and then it would go to IGTV really easy.
Mm-hmm.
That might be a solution.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends. But I think that Instagram's hot,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really hot right now. And them not maximizing the vertical format, because most of the engagement's happening now on Instagram in stories and in that type of vertical video mode. So I think they're probably going to do something there. That's my guess. I sure hope they do.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I think that is missing right now, is an easy way to do that. And right now you have to hack it, and it's not a fun or easy hack. You either need to use an emulator, or you need to try to actually refilm, point your phone at like a high-res TV that you're just outputting your mix onto.
Yeah,
and
I've seen people do that.
It's a pretty fun way to do it, but it's not the easiest. So that I completely agree with you there. Instagram would be, if not a prediction, then maybe a wish. I think 2019 might see the introduction of third-party streaming, app streaming on Instagram. Let's keep our fingers crossed. That's a good prediction. What do you think about Pinterest? What is Pinterest doing right now? What have they been doing? What do you think they're going to announce in 2019?
Well, the cool thing about Pinterest is that they have one for Pinterest. I think they're going to go public this year. I think pretty much the owners have said that. So I think they're going to try to get some new innovation that's going to happen there. They've already done some things last year that are really cool called video pins. Now, it's not live video, but it is video on Pinterest. And the easiest way that I can explain it, if you like on your mobile device, if you scroll up on Pinterest and see the feed, you see all these images going up, and they're the tall sort of images. Well, these video pins are almost like, in the Harry Potter movies, those newspapers that would move kind of things. Well, all of a sudden you see that when you're scrolling through the feed, and you're like, what in the world? And you click on that, and it's a video. So I've seen like the new trailer for the Marvel's Avengers movie on Pinterest using those types of pins. And the thing is and I've actually been able to use those pins, and it stands out so much. If everybody's used to a static image, and then you have a video in there, it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. A lot of the like Nordstrom's and Target and some of those big companies were kind of the first ones on there, and they really saw really good success with those type of moving images and then being able to watch video right on Pinterest. You've been able to have YouTube play natively and Vimeo play natively in Pinterest for a while now, but this ability to upload what are called video pins is I think, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. So you think that's going to be a thing, and that they haven't. So pinning live content, is that even
nothing? Yeah, I haven't seen anything like that. I don't know if that would work. I just don't know, because who knows what Pinterest is going to do. There's a lot, of course, recipe pins on how people are making recipes, and the thing with Pinterest, it's not really a social media network. It's more of a visual search engine. And once you get starting to think about that, it can be really powerful for like driving traffic. And if you have a product, I'm working with some pretty big. There's a big Instagram app company that I'm working with right now, and they're seeing some good stuff because you can do a app install right from Pinterest. They're doing really cool things with being able to shop right from Pinterest. The thing about Pinterest is a lot of people take their phone in the store and will see something they pinned on Pinterest and go to Target and buy it. And so if you're selling a product, you need to be on Pinterest. It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah. So this this is probably a good time to show viewers your website here, manlypinteresttips.com. So it's on my desktop here, and you've got a bunch of great articles here on all the platforms and the online tools that people need. You mentioned obviously the growth of shoppable posts on Pinterest and Instagram, and that's a post you did back in October. But so you're committed to Pinterest as a platform. It's something you built your brand off of. Do you? So is this? Are you always going to be following the latest around Pinterest, and are you always going to be using it as part of your sort of content strategy and your social media presence?
Yeah, as long as it keeps driving traffic. That's the thing. People are like, why, Jeff, are you on Pinterest? No, it's the biggest hang up I think people have with Pinterest is they think it's all for women. It's not. Men are the fastest growing demographic on Pinterest. It's actually got more male viewers on it than the whole subscribers of GQ and Sports Illustrated combined. So they're on there, and it drives tons of traffic. and it's visual. And that's the thing. As long as it keeps doing that, and as long as I can still sell products on there. I have another site called Manly Plunder where I sell T-shirts, and I mainly made it to test shoppable pins on Pinterest. Well, I sell stuff for just pinning photos on Pinterest. It's seamless, and so that's why I'm saying if you have a product, it's just a no-brainer. And more people I think are finding success on Pinterest, and it's not just crafty things. Any industry that you think of probably would do well to be on Pinterest. I mean,
Really?
I haven't found one that
Like
I don't think
software and like things like that, huh? Like
yeah.
we should.
I mean,
Wirecast
like
should
I
have
said,
a Pinterest presence.
you should, because it will drive traffic back to your blog.
Interesting.
If you're saying like if you do an article, it's like Andrew's 5 top tips for Wirecast video, and you write it up, and then you make some good images and you pin it on Pinterest, and you're active on Pinterest. You got to remember all those pins are spider webs and links back to your site.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is Pinterest is huge for SEO. Your boards can rank on Google. I have a board with Peg Fitzpatrick. It's a shared board that we share together. It's called Instant Instagram Tips. And if you Google Instant Instagram Tips, we're like at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And so your boards can rank. So it's for search, it's just really, really powerful.
Interesting. Okay. And is that so? Do you see basically? The nice thing about Pinterest is that it was always sort of a visual album, kind of like almost like a collage book around certain topics and content and all that kind of stuff. And so it seemed like a really good way to aggregate content and then share it out in a visual way for other people. That's how it got started. That's why it's useful to people. Very different from something like Instagram, where Instagram was always around sharing your photos and your original content as opposed to kind of pinning other people's content. Do you see them beginning to cross over more and more and sort of try to, compete?
That's a big. There's a big question. I get this asked a lot about what's the difference between Pinterest and Instagram. Instagram is a selfie capital of the world. I mean, everybody takes a picture of themselves as a selfie. It's not. It's a great way to build your brand. It's not a great way to drive traffic, because you have to go to the profile and you only have one link to, if you're not doing shoppable posts or something like that, one link to get people back to your page or profile. So it's really hard. The good thing is Instagram traffic is really, really valued traffic, because if they're going to that links to click on your link, they really want to be there. Pinterest is more traffic based, and it's not the selfie thing. In fact, images work different from Instagram and Pinterest. And when I was working for a client, it was a big clothing store, and when I was doing research, I was looking at places like Nordstrom and Macy's, and they had the women's catalog where they were, on Instagram, they were, posing, and it was really pretty, and you saw the whole full length of the outfit, like the sweater they were wearing. But you go to Pinterest, and they would just have it cropped. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't see their face; it would just be their torso. And I was like, "What in the world?" And after digging into it, it's because people go to Pinterest to see themselves. It's a place where they go to dream, and they found out that people would click on them more if they didn't have somebody else's face in there. They could imagine themselves in that outfit easier with the head and the legs cut off. And so it was really interesting how those two platforms differ in that way.
Huh. So Instagram really still about other people, following other content, you getting your own word out there, and then Pinterest really about a collection of an expression of yourself.
Yeah, like what you want to dream about, and what you want to, what you are planning. Like if, I want to build a barn right now, and I want to have a man cave in it. So I want to look and see, okay, that bar, that wooden bar I want in my, so I'm going to save that. Well, when I'm ready to buy it or get the materials for it, I can click on it, and it takes me to either a place of Lowe's where I can buy all the items, or it takes me to a custom wood guy who makes that stuff. And so when people save your stuff, that's one thing, and that's important to the Pinterest algorithm. But then there's that click where it goes back to your website, and you can give them that information, upsell them, or they make a purchase or something like that.
Got it. So, okay, that was a great, I think, rundown on the difference between Pinterest and Instagram and what people are doing. I mean, obviously, both platforms require people to share content and kind of create content and then put it out there. But I think there's a kind of a subtle difference in what sort of the people who are consuming that content are looking for, and how they want to, why they're curating it or collecting it or following it. Okay, there's actually, I heard about a really interesting new platform that I think Bill Gates is sort of launching, similar to Pinterest, but more in like a recommendations platform, like, movies that people recommend, podcasts that you recommend, books, and just kind of, you can follow other people's sort of recommendations, kind of like Goodreads, but maybe more broad, in terms of just, you can kind of do that. And I think of Pinterest a little bit like that too sometimes, is that if I was going to follow you on Pinterest, I'd really be wanting to see what you're thinking about, what you're recommending in those different categories. And I was noticing you have a really good kind of set of boards here on different topics. So if I wanted to, you've got stuff on Google Plus and Social Media Examiner and small business tips.
That Google Plus board needs to go away.
Star Wars geekery,
Yeah. So the interesting thing about Pinterest is, like, people can follow your entire profile, which means they're following everything that you pin. But then, like, for you, let's say I really don't care about any of that social media stuff, and I really want to follow that Star Wars geekery board. They can just follow that board.
Right.
So that's really cool. So I do a lot of woodworking, and so I have a lot of people who follow me because of my woodworking stuff. So if you're a brand, a lot of stuff falls underneath the Manly Pinterest Tips brand, which is kind of unique for a lot of things. But like, if I was a flower shop, I wouldn't just pin all my flowers all the time. I would pin things like how to set up a table for Valentine's Day, planning the perfect date, what types, how to keep your flowers alive. And it doesn't have to be all your content. You could find you always want to think of your audience. And so you're wanting to pin stuff that would give them value.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great breakdown of that. Okay, so from Epic Radio Show, I love Pinterest. I'd be curious to know how many of our viewers are currently using Pinterest or are potentially going to start using it in 2019, and if so, let us know why in the comments. All right, so Jeff, let's say we have just wrap up here. I want to be kind of wrapping up the show by within the next 15 minutes or so. Are there any other major predictions or trends that you kind of see coming here in 2019? We talked about sort of interactivity. We talked about Instagram coming. We've covered Pinterest. I think that was a good one. What do you see around YouTube? And that's another good live streaming platform. In fact, I'd heard that they had grabbed a lot of the growth around live, them and Twitch in a lot of ways in 2018. Facebook kind of took over 2017, and there was no one who came even close. I think Facebook continues to grow, but I think YouTube gained some ground back in 2018. Is that sort of square with what you're thinking, and where do you think YouTube's going next?
I think so, and I think one of the reasons is because, like we mentioned before, how people weren't finding our videos. YouTube is the second largest search engine network, and people go to YouTube to find how to do something. And so I think that's why they're grabbing some of the back. I think Twitch, I think a lot of people left YouTube because some of the creators weren't happy about the monetization, and so Twitch got some of those people over there. And so I think it's kind of balancing out a little bit. But one of the things, and we kind of mentioned this when we had our pre-show call, but was that the importance of playing to each platform's strength. And so I think one of the trends that I see a lot of people who are finally kind of grasping hold of it, that they can't just produce one thing for one platform and be done with it. I'm always talking about repurposing. So the great thing about live video is there's so much content you can get out of one live video. You can strip the audio for a podcast. You can cut it up in. I always say a question and answer is a good one is like a minute and a half, which is a perfect length for just a snackable video that you could upload like for a square video on Facebook, and then you could take that and tweak it a little bit and leave it as the kind of the widescreen and put it up on YouTube and see if you get some search traffic that way. And then you can do a 30 seconds or a minute segment of that and put it on Instagram as a square graphic. And so we're all, I'm in the social media and marketing space, and we're always trying to put out more content. We've got to write a new blog article. We've got to do a live stream. I think we need to step back a little bit and say, okay, that was really good content, what I just did. I need to get that out to those other networks. I think LinkedIn, we've seen some really good traffic and some really good engagement when we have taken what we've done and kind of chopped it up and put it as a LinkedIn segment right now. We've actually started doing like these 30-second how-to tips tools on the Social Media Examiner channel, and we put those up on LinkedIn as well because those square videos do well up there. So I think looking at the algorithm and seeing what's working, and it may work different for your company than other people, so you have to test it. But being able to kind of play to each platform's algorithm strength, I think is what's going to really be the trend, and people aren't just going to be able to do a live video and put it up everywhere. It's got to be, okay, I've got to craft it a little bit for that network's preferences.
Yeah, no, I think that also makes sense. Do you I know that the YouTube, the long tail is really why you put content there and why many people do that, so that anytime someone's searching for stuff, Google's going to rank it very high because obviously they own YouTube and any Google search results, and then the actual native YouTube search also very powerful. And I've seen a lot of comments, videos on YouTube around how much that live content converts into high search content, VOD content onto YouTube. I think there's some debate on whether or not live streaming helps with, converts well to the algorithm directly as opposed to uploading a video and then doing it, as opposed to, say, just live streaming it and leaving it up there to see how it does in search. Right. Have you heard anything about that either? Do you think that if you live stream to YouTube or Facebook, and then you should leave the live stream in its native form on YouTube as just your video, or do you think that you're really only get most of the long tail search results from chopping it up and really tagging the heck out of small chunks, and you need keeping those live streams sort of chunking them down to little snacks of videos, 5-10 minutes or less?
My gut instinct, and I've seen some people do it, and we leave our live video, our Friday show that's converted to a podcast later for Social Media Examiner, the social media marketing talk show, that stays just as it is on YouTube. I go back and retag it, and that's about it. But if I could do it, what I would do is I would leave the live stream up there and also chop it up for it, so you would get the benefit of both. Mm-hmm. I have seen a lot more of the YouTubers that I follow who were doing, they were uploading 2 or 3 times a week. A lot of them are cutting back. I see them doing like maybe 2 times a week, but then also going live at least once a week. Mm-hmm. And so since they're starting to do that, I'm thinking that they're probably seeing some sort of a boost when they're doing that, or they wouldn't be doing it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, and just like any of these networks, they're always tweaking the algorithm. And I think YouTube and Facebook, the more competition they have, I think that's going to be good. I have been really impressed with some of YouTube's kind of premium offerings they've had. And so I think the more live content they can get in where people can watch that, like say, I just subscribed to YouTube TV. I cut all my cable and started doing that. The more you can get content in easily to, some of this live video stuff that's going on into some of these premium platforms, kind of like Facebook Watch was doing, I think I see that coming as a trend as well. I think discoverability is going to be key in how people do that in 2019. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. Yep, I think that whether or not whichever platform you use, whatever strengths you use, you probably also want to, at this point, using YouTube as sort of your content repository for your archives, we find that to be extremely advantageous. We use Vimeo as well for a lot of our stuff. We like that as an account, but obviously a lot of discoverability comes from YouTube. So I think that you should absolutely have all your content on YouTube. If one of your goals is to get more viewers and find people that are trying to get your content out. But do you think that there is an advantage to getting viewers off the platforms to find you or your website, your call to actions, putting maybe a native player on your own website? Have you ever considered, going with a Vimeo Live or like a dedicated service directly to your own website?
Yeah, and I know you're getting choked up about it, but it's YouTube is really important to Andrew.
the chai is just getting to me there.
I think see, that's the balance, and I really struggle with that because like using a service like Wistia where that's kind of behind a wall, and you can even set it so they have to give you your email before they can get on it. I think there's a place for that, and it's the balance between discoverability, so people see you and see your services, to like not giving to everything with giving all your stuff away for free. Jay Bear had something that I really liked. He says, just because you know all the ingredients doesn't make you a chef. And I kind of think that is kind of the way we kind of need to think about it, because it does make sense. Because to be honest, if you listen to a lot of these people's podcasts and, look at their live streams, a lot of the stuff they probably sell for their course you can pick up. But the thing is, people all want it in one place,
Right.
and they're willing to pay for it. And they may discover Andrew really knows how to. He's solving that problem of grabbing all those pieces of content and I can put it up on screen. That's the itch that I'm trying to scratch right there. And they may see you talking about that on a YouTube, and they're like, well, I'm just going to buy Wirecast. I saw him do that. That's all I need. And so I think that it's the balance. Some of the stuff you may like want to have a private group where you're going to pay me a certain amount a month where I'm going to train you, and it's just going to be you and whoever else pays for this service, and it's going to be really intimate, and you're paying for access. So I see that kind of stuff, but it's a balance, and I wrestle with that question a lot.
Yeah, I think it is really tough, and so I think we're in the same boat. Like we definitely don't want to give away all of it, but at the same time, at some point, it's got to come back to your website at some point, really, and some of the sort of even if you want to start transacting all your business through the in-platform tools on Facebook and YouTube, the thing is you mentioned they will change something sooner or later, and you're going to come to rely on whatever feature or monetization tool, and then they're just going to get rid of it, or it's not working if it doesn't scale the way they want it. So you have so much more control over your business and your transaction, your interactions with your customers at the point of sale, if you can make that happen at your page and your site where you have the sort of the control over it. And so I think that finding that balance between using the awareness and the discoverability of the major platforms, the social networks, is a really key thing and should never be overlooked as part of your strategy. But at the end of the day, don't forget that maybe the goal there is to eventually get them, to your site or to your page where your content and your sort of personal relationship happens, even if that's just to build an email list or something like that. For now, the only offsite we do with our content, at least around Facebook Live, is to and YouTube Live, is to just let people know about our email list, and the email list is strictly offsite right now. But we could in-platform that. That's the things we've wanted to talk about there, and then we've also wanted to maybe build a better content experience for viewers for this live show and our content on our website. So a dedicated place where people can go see past shows, search by topics and guests that they're interested in, and kind of get out of the other platforms that are out there. But it's a lot of work, and it's also a question as to what's our goal there, and I think everyone has to kind of answer that for themselves. All right, so and I just noticed a comment from Epic Radio Show. They said they get 20 times more views on Facebook than other platforms.
One of the things I'd look at that is that because I have a little bit of problems with Facebook reporting numbers, because views, is that the 3-second views, or are you counting the engagement all the way to the end of your broadcast? And what's the time of them watching it? It's like YouTube, that's the one thing they live by, is like how long have people watched my videos? And you can do the same on Facebook. How long are people watching it? Because that makes a difference. So because if you're scrolling the feed, that counts as a view, like if I'm on there for longer than 3 seconds. And so maybe that's another one we can get into, is like, I hope they kind of really kind of drill down a little bit on their analytics.
I think so, and the way they report, that's a really good point that you brought up. And then Clyde here is also pointing out that native players, Facebook can always change the rules, and YouTube says no inserts during live, no third-party ads, etc., and that can change at any given time, any given moment. And so if you start totally money all of your eggs in your money basket on one platform. Looks like that froze there on the screen. That's funny.
And this kind of goes back to our whole conversation at the beginning that Ian brought up, was like it's hard to wrangle comments and when you're going all these multiple streams. But the plus side is, if one of those platforms does get wonky on you or they do something, you can move your audience, go, hey, we're not going to be on Facebook anymore because they're doing this stuff and they broke this. We'll be all on YouTube. And so you have some options there that can happen a little bit easier. So if you're using something like Wirecast, it can just move them over that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think this white bar is telling me that maybe we should wrap this show up and and get out of here before everything, the internet explodes on us. So, Jeff, you've been a great guest, and I'm curious if people want to find out more about your content, your shows. Obviously they can go to manlypinterest.tips.com, but you gave us some lovely contact information here for you, so you can actually email Jeff. What's the best way? What's your preferred mode of communication if people can reach out?
Yeah, Jeff at Manly Pinterest Tips. I'm Jeff C on all the social networks. That's Jeff SIEH. I before E, especially in C, and that's how you can find me. And yeah, if you have a question, feel free to reach out, and I'll answer it the best I can.
Well, I appreciate that, Jeff. It was very nice to finally have you on the show. I think it was a really good conversation. I loved, we covered a lot here. So obviously 2019, we'll have to see what happens if Instagram comes out with that live streaming, fingers crossed, and all the other sort of things happening around engagement. But I think there's one takeaway. It's that if you're not improving or increasing the way you're engaging things with your live viewers, then you're falling behind why this, what's going on in the medium and why this medium even exists. Any last thoughts you want to leave us with before we take off today?
No, thanks for having me. It's been great. I'm glad that the power came back on, and I was like, somebody doesn't want us to actually do this show. So I'm glad that it all worked out.
Yeah, to give you a little background here, we had a power outage here in the headquarters here, so we were not sure if today's show would actually even happen. So we're very happy that it did. If it didn't, it would have been like a third or fourth time we would have needed to reschedule with Jeff. That would have been crazy. And I think some of you mentioned there was some intermittent fuzziness with the video. I'm going to chalk that up to just power lines and bad sort of internet connections out there. We've had a lot of rain and a lot of wind here in Northern California. And we have a lot of trees. So when you combine those three things, internet and power lines don't tend to do as well. So anyway, we kept the connection. Your audio was great the whole time, despite any video hiccups that we may or may not have had. But I want to say thanks, Jeff. This was a great interview, and I can't wait to have you on again soon to talk more about this. Maybe we should bring you back to see which predictions were coming true in 2019.
That's right. All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. So, guys, that was Jeff Sia from the Social Media Examiner Tips and ManlyPinterestTips.com. Please check out his blog and ManlyPinterestTips.com. You can see just how much great content he puts out there. I think it's really worth your time if you have interest in any of the sort of areas that he's an expert in. But he's really good with obviously Pinterest, but he has a lot of thoughts to share on ways that you can optimize for Instagram. You can optimize for any of your social media strategies around video, and you can always catch him live 2 to 3 times a week, if not more. So check him out. Jeff Sia, and we hope to have him on again soon. And if you're heading out to the social media marketing world in San Diego in March, you can catch Jeff speaking live there, which could be a really fun experience. So check it out. So I want to say thanks to all of you. If you want to catch our next show, we'll be back here next week, same time, every Thursday, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. We've got our email list there at telstream.net/wirecastlive. Next week, we'll be bringing back a guest we've had on the show before, Mr. Dave Basulto. He often stops by actually in the viewing as an audience member, so you'll see him. But he is the founder and sort of head product guru at iographer.com, the handiest little device you'll ever find for your iPhone, Android or tablet device that if you want to hook up cameras, lenses, microphones, it's got handles, it's portable. We'll be talking a lot about what you can do to optimize your mobile filmmaking and live streaming experience with Dave next week. So check that out, and we'll see you there. We also have a number of guests that we've confirmed, booked for upcoming episodes, and we're very excited to bring some of them on. Some top producers, live video streaming experts who are streaming some of the biggest events out there, from major game conferences and video reveals to Emmy Award-winning content. So please stick around. Go to that email list if you want to be notified. And I want to say welcome and thank you to all of our new viewers, as well as all the folks who joined us and join us every week. This has been a real pleasure. I look forward to a great 2019 with you guys. And yeah, we'll see you soon. So stay tuned next week, and we'll be back then.